trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
Welcome, folks. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut studio project by Sum 41, Half Hour of Power. Now, the thing about this project is it did have a single, but it's basically the introduction to what they would come to be later in years, especially like the exact year later when they dropped All Killer, No Filler. So that's kind of the concept. That album is known for songs like Fat Lip and In Too Deep, which have a lot more of a pop punk, Blink-182 type feel. But this project has a lot of like more, initially I think they were going to be kind of like metal punk, which I don't think is really talked about. I mean, there's punk rock, but in terms of like metal punk, it's kind of something that's not shown off nearly enough. But that's definitely something. These are some of the more vicious songs. You know, when I listen to All Killer, No Filler years ago, I really don't remember any, or at least not the hit songs off that project being as ferocious as the first 5 songs that you hear on this project. It's pretty cool. But then on top of that, there's also some extra stuff. You do get some instrumentals on here, which basically compounds what I'm saying further with them having like some real fiery kind of instrumentals. But really, there, out of 11 songs, there's really not an overabundance of tracks on here that are actually hit songs, and there's really, but apart from the single Makes No Difference, it's kind of almost tricky to find like the second most marketable song that could have been on this project. So really, I think the concept of pop punk on this project was something that was kind of flirted with, but not necessarily taken advantage of like it would be a year later, because it seems like the song that they released, Makes No Difference, they weren't entirely sure if that was going to work. So that's kind of the concept. So basically, a lot of this is pretty vicious metal that kind of feels like garage band rock in a lot of ways with like a punk edge to it. That's kind of the concept. So we'll talk about the single Makes No Difference. Basically, like I said, this feels a lot like a Blink-182 song from around the time of their Enema of the State project. Something like All the Small Things. Has a nice riff in the verses, easy to kind of kick back to. Nice summer song, good energy towards it, and a nice hook also. It's just overall good. I mean, if they would have had more songs like this, I definitely would have said, I mean, this EP is good for what it is, but I think probably it makes me wonder what would have happened if they had actually had a couple other hits like this, because like I said, it didn't seem like they were aware, because this was their debut project basically, apart from like their demo tape that dropped a couple years before that. So it was just kind of, you know, testing the waters, seeing what's going to happen. But for what it is, this is a brilliant single. And I'll go ahead and talk about some of the other hits on here. So like, for example, the first 5 songs that you hear out of the 11 that you hear are great. They just have great energy. The instrumentals are good. Like, I felt like Grab the Devil by the Horns and Fuck Him Up the Ass has a real ferocious energy. Almost sounds like it could be the instrumental to like a rock video game or something like that. Definitely good vibes towards it. I like the energy on there, just real mean and metal sounding. And it's the same thing with Ride the Chariot to the Devil. I mean, both of which pretty much is just like a damn kind of response to it, just because they could have been decent songs if they had put like another minute and a half or something like that and vocals on there. But they're both basically good. I mean, to me, they're just kind of interlude songs where you're just kind of going to the other room to get like a soda out of the fridge or something like that, or maybe you're gonna go take a piss real quick and these songs play so you don't actually miss a song. I mean, I wouldn't want to miss these songs because they're good instrumentals, but I definitely would encourage rock bands to kind of do this, to have like instrumentals like this and rock interludes. Another song that does that is Tables Have Turned, the 4th song that you hear. It's a nice 45-second little interlude that just kind of has some real brief rock ambience towards it. Like Godsmack has done this also, where they've had like a rock kind of instrumental, but it's not something that every day kind of happens. It's something I'd like to see, just because they kind of create like an extra ambience when you listen to them in the summertime and that type of stuff. When you're outside having a beer, drinking a soda, having a barbecue, something like that. It gives you more room to chat and that kind of stuff, to where you don't have to feel like if you're new to this music, it's not as much of a big deal if you miss out on it. But it's just good vibes, kind of ambient to kind of listen to. It's a good concept. So, but then the other three songs, I'll go ahead and list the 6 songs out of 11 I enjoyed for you. So that I recommend to you, the ones I think that you feel foolish for missing out on. So the 6 songs I recommend would be "Makes No Difference," the single, "Machine Gun," "Ride the Chariot to the Devil," "Grab the Devil by the Horns and Fuck Him Up the Ass," "What I Believe," and "Tables Have Turned." So I've talked about all of these already, with the exception of "Machine Gun" and "What I Believe." Now, "What I Believe" probably is the second closest bet to like a rock or a single that could have worked like "Makes No Difference." Not quite as catchy as "Makes No Difference," but definitely has a lot of energy. This is like probably the most energetic regular song on here that connects, and I'll talk about that next. But that's the second most one that connects. Nice, easy. I mean, it has these have some good drumming on there. Like, I felt like "What I Believe" has good drumming. Another song that has real good drumming is "32 Ways to Die," but I didn't enjoy that one as much because it just needed a better instrumental besides the drumming. But like, "What I Believe" is just an overall good song that could have almost been a single. Good energy, like I said, and so does "Machine Gun." These have good energy, real good, easy, kicks things off, gets the party started kind of songs. "Machine Gun" and "What I Believe" do that. I'll talk a little bit about some of the songs I didn't enjoy. Like, I felt like "Summer," uh, "It's What We're All About," "Another Time Around," and "Second Chance" for Max Headroom. All of these had kind of uninteresting riffs. A lot of these had uninteresting riffs, and they kind of felt as if like the polish to these was not quite there. They felt unorganized and not quite as constructed in terms of like I think they were aiming for like a punk rock feel, but the direction behind it was just not quite even enough to really get them out. Like, it just felt like trying to make head banging music, but not much really going on beyond that. I mean, it felt like the verse structure towards doing that, it just kind of felt like you've got the single, you've got the hits, but we're still kind of finding the sound somewhat. So a lot of these, I mean, they might be easygoing, kind of headbanging songs if that's what you're looking for, but the direction behind them is just kind of aimless. That's kind of the situation. They don't quite feel as polished and sophisticated and as official as like songs like "Makes No Difference" and "What I Believe." They're just kind of like low key, almost like garage band, still kind of demo like songs. But I did appreciate at least the concept of the first half of the project. So that's definitely something there. But because I like 6 out of 11 songs, I'm gonna go ahead and yeah, I'm gonna score this album basically like a 6 out of 10, because really I would almost give it a 5.5 out of 10, but because of the sheer fun I had with this project, the fact that they made instrumentals interesting is a charming point. There's 3 good songs that have a nice energy to them. They're different, minus "Makes No Difference" from the usual vibes that I've gotten from Sum 41, and it's interesting to kind of get them back on that kick because that's a good feel for them. I would definitely like more songs like "What I Believe," but yeah, the energy of these songs is pretty solid, and the instrumentals they pulled off. But unfortunately, they don't have enough. They needed probably at least another song like "Makes No Difference" and probably another song like "What I Believe." Like, I felt like the second half of the project just kind of plods along, and because this is their debut, it's kind of like the drawing board is kind of like a sketchy, we don't know what we're going to do yet kind of vibe with it. But because of that, obviously by the time they got a studio LP out there, they had kind of found their sound with songs like "Fat Lip" and "In Too Deep," which just sound head and shoulders above basically every song on this project, minus "Makes No Difference" and "What I Believe." And that's kind of the concept. They had truly perfected, or at least mastered, the concept of punk rock up to that point, because it just sounded so good the way they did it on "All Killer No Filler." It's definitely appreciative seeing what they did with like "Makes No Difference" and then "Fat Lip" and the other "In Too Deep" and the rest of them on the next album. I even want to say "Motivation," but that's kind of the concept about it. The social score I will give a 6 out of 10 also, just because the first half of the album is good And I do think the energy of it means something. I definitely think people are going to be affected by the energy and say, wow, this is really good, charming energy. Makes no difference. It's a brilliant single. And we like the punk kind of uh, punkish edge that this project kind of has. I mean, it doesn't carry you through the night like All Killer No Filler does, but it's definitely a charming and prompting kind of release. That's kind of the thing. Like, I don't know in terms of the future. I'm not sure what Sum 41 has been up to. I know they dropped an album in 2016 and at least one album after that. I'm not sure when it came out, maybe 2019, 2020, but I'm kind of itching for another project from them just to kind of see what they could do circa 2022 and get like a revamp of what's going on because the stuff that they did in 2000 and 2001 was pretty brilliant. So it's good. It'd be nice to see some more of them.